Hi, everyone. This is Khristee Rich. Welcome to Holistic Me TV. This is a brand new TV show on YouTube. I hope you will subscribe to the whole season. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. And today I am very excited. I have a guest from New York City. We have a lot in common, so you will hear about her soon. And just a little bit about me. I am Khristee Rich. I am your host. I have been a holistic health expert and healer for over 18 years. I absolutely love the work that I do. I help to empower women with their health and wellness. I help them to overcome chronic conditions, chronic illnesses, and trauma through a holistic perspective. That means getting to the root cause and treating it mind, body, and spirit, and then through natural ways and natural remedies. So I'm super excited about this show because it is to empower women all around the world. This is an international show. We have international guests from all around the world sharing their expertise. So today I'm very pleased to announce Kahshanna Evans. She is our guest today, and she's in New York City right now. And I will read her bio to begin, and then we'll go into her beautiful story. So here we have it. So Kahshanna Evans, as a lifetime student of human nature, interconnectivity, and play, Kahshanna Evans studied fashion in Los Angeles, performing arts in New York City, traveled extensively during her early career, and immersed herself in various modalities of well-being, most notably non-plant medicine, shamanism, Reiki, and voice dialogue. Burnout, common to entertainment, and complicated feelings surfaced as a survivor of feral policing, eventually signaled the need for a change. Kahshanna began work rooted in repair, recovery, and restoration that was arduous, life-changing, and profoundly restorative over a 10-year span. She is the founder of Kissing Lions Public Relations, and most recently, Kahshanna now brings her passion for uniting people through stories and trauma-informed transformation to the role of director of creating resilient communities at Paces Connection. Kahshanna maintains an evergreen affinity for human rights, the freedom of expression, and the regenerative power of transformation as a vehicle for a better world. Beautiful. Welcome, Kahshanna.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here, and I'm here in New York City. It's a beautiful sunny day, but I'm giving a big rippled hello to your global audience.
Thank you so much. And it's beautiful here in Connecticut as well. It's a gorgeous day. It's been a gorgeous week. The warm weather has returned.
Yes,
So
October is really giving me life.
good. Wonderful. Wonderful. Me too. So I would love for you to share your story with the audience. I would love for you to share how you got into the work that you do. Can you take us back and share your story and what led you to the work that you do today?
Thank you for that amazing introduction, Khristee. And yes, I've thought a lot about this because I think as many of the audience members may, relate to, your story continues to evolve. Um,
Yes.
so I had a complicated early start experiencing and witnessing violence at the hands of a caretaker who was a non-blood relative,
Hmm.
also happened to be a law enforcement official.
Hmm.
So this was my first experience with feral policing, something that impacts a lot of African Americans here in the United States.
Hmm.
In this case, it was in the household. So I was in fourth grade, and it was a powerful time to sort of like any belief you had from being in the normal world was somehow turned upside down through, seeing how rage unfolds.
Hmm.
Adults who are unable to regulate their nervous systems and get a hold of their triggers prior to harming and attacking children. So
Hmm.
it was one of the things that I take away from that experience. I was in the fourth grade. My sister was a few grades older than me. But I really take away from that experience. I think the most profound thing I realized is I didn't have the words to express the violence. And just to paint the picture for your audience, the type of proposed discipline that leaves marks. Okay. And we really want to be clear about casual conversations about violence and life changing violence. And
Mm,
so it really can impact you, your developing mind, your developing nervous system, and as an impact, your body, mind, and spirit. So
yes.
it was complicated to see this almost Disney like private school I attended. It was a private religious school,
Okay.
most likely on scholarships and things like that, because we were not an affluent family. And, I would have these feelings like I would see this. There's a little cute girl when I was in fourth grade. Her name was Amanda, and she had pretty little pigtails. She always had ribbons. Her pigtails bounced around. She had rosy cheeks and these cute little glasses. And I had such complicated feelings about her joy with and
Hmm.
not able to connect. I'm being harmed in ways that I can't speak to. And I also
Mm,
can't intervene and stop these crises from happening. So
right.
it was powerful, um, deeply disturbing, but also eye opening. I mean, I definitely have I have chops for resilience. So the ideas that I got early on were very much about this is out of control and I'm going to change stuff one day. The things that you
Good.
tell yourself when you
Good. Wonderful. Yes. So you had that from a young age. You had that resiliency. You knew you were going to overcome this, heal, and change, help others.
I don't know that I knew I was going to. I didn't know things like the difference between the deep, deep unhappiness I felt,
Mm,
which you can see this in that with others that have adverse childhood experiences, other traumas in their lives, or coming from a war-torn territory, or having experienced similar violence. So it's not like I knew. I just had There was nowhere to go but up. And
right.
I was
Right.
hungry for whatever up was. And so I want to differentiate that for the audience, because even, when folks actually understand, I know that I'm going to do better. You're already so much more you're so much farther ahead than you may imagine.
Yes. Intention is everything.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. So you had this very difficult childhood, traumatic childhood. And then what happened after that? I know you got into the fashion entertainment world. Was it was it in order to heal? Was it order to express yourself? How did you go into this field?
So this was quite by mistake. I studied at I'm not even going to describe the place that I attended after high school. This was Brooks College,
Okay.
this really tiny college for fashion design in Long Beach, California.
Okay.
Um, so it wasn't to do anything other than kind of show up and figure out where's the joy, where's the magic. I'm coming of age. I have freedom now to,
Yes.
exercise or explore my own identity. And you know, thankful to my mom for teaching me how to sew. And because we didn't have a lot of money for major educational institutions after high school, we chose a tiny, scalable 2-year trade focused college because
Okay.
that's what was accessible.
Okay. And you're
Um,
originally from California.
Originally from Southern California, so this was maybe an hour away from where I grew up. So Long Beach I wasn't realized during those days. Um, I encountered so many different experiences, like meeting my first batch of amazing gay men who were like, let me dust you off. Where's your confidence at? We're going to
Oh,
take you out.
wonderful. Wonderful.
And so when people hear me, talking about LGBTQIA and 2S plus, it's because I have been parented somehow in those sort of years beyond high school.
Mm.
And it was not only the complicated early start I had dealing with that life-changing violence, but interestingly, there were layers of violence yet to discover. So I ended
Mm.
up sort of getting bullied out of college. I went to college for 1 year, and it was a sort of, I want to call it like a Spike Lee narrative. Not Spike Lee, the amazing, director that we know him to be, but the narrative that gets into our young Black women. Which young Black women get to belong? Which Black women are Black enough?
Oh,
Which Black
right.
women are not exactly Black enough? And this is not to hyper emphasize the struggles that we may have within the Black and African American culture. It's more to direct our attention to the construct that contributed to this type of friction. So instead of, you know, dating the basketball guys, I had crushes on the surfer guys who were like much more nerdy and kind of like they were afraid still, and
Mm.
I could relate to that a little bit more,
Interesting.
especially based on the way that I was raised. So
Hmm.
that had mixed results in terms of I ended up getting threatened. Someone put their hands on me.
Oh, no.
Yes. And so it's this type of thing that I also very much contributed to me challenging, well, what are my beliefs? Well, what are their beliefs? Am I allowed to have my own identity, or do I have to assimilate to Euro Americans, Afro Americans? I mean, I didn't know where my center was at that time.
Right.
So I didn't go back. I was barely, paying as it was. And I ended up getting scouted, took a photo shoot, and ended up getting an agent. And that led to,
Wow.
it was completely
Meant to
like,
be.
when you think you like find a stone and you're like, did you know that's like the rarest ruby on earth? So I ended up, I started off in LA doing photo shoots, working for brands like Levi's, being in
Mm.
magazines back then. Yes, I am kind of telling my age to those who are going to remember these magazines, but like 17 magazines,
Oh,
Sassy
sure.
magazine. And these were like, it was so dynamically different from those other experiences
Yeah.
in ways that I could not have imagined. So then the travel came. I started to come to New York and travel for, international fashion season, going to Paris, going to the
Mm.
UK. So
Wonderful.
it was awesome. It
Yeah.
had, it had pros and cons. The
Yes.
the pros were, being able to not just view beauty as something I could never have, but I was suddenly in an environment where I was expected to be confident and
Mm.
effortless with all eyes on me, which was something that was the exact opposite that I was raised to do. I
Mm.
was raised under that sort of narrative of humble pie. You better
Right.
be careful about your confidence, and
Mm.
or getting really sort of punished for, what did you say?
Going out of
You're
line. Yeah.
so you're challenging that status quo. And here we were with producers and directors and, folks that are behind our favorite magazines, um being on the cover of Essence magazine in
Wonderful.
1994,
Wonderful. That's
and just
amazing.
having it sort of be so surreal. And at the same time, when we look at the cons were still nudging the baggage that I was quietly not understanding what to do with.
Right, right. That makes sense. That makes
So
sense. So it's very interesting, your journey. So you had trauma when you were in fourth grade with this caretaker who was there in your home, who was a police officer, and then you had bullying when you went to college. And so you didn't really feel the confidence except for these gay friends who were boosting you up. Thankfully, they were there. And then you got scouted, you got picked up, but then you were expected to be a completely different person, confident, and to be big out in the world in all these amazing cities, Paris, Los Angeles, etc. And you still hadn't completely healed from your past. So what did you do at that point? Did you seek healing then, or did it come a little later?
So it was, sort of during this time of sort of this personal identity renaissance, or me fighting against a renaissance and trying to fit in as a result in ways that were, with mixed results.
Mm-hmm.
So I was studying at William Esper Studios. This was like the cool kids acting spot. And it was a brilliant 2-year program. I used my own modeling money. And
Wonderful.
I kept having spiritual experiences
Great.
continually and consistently. And people were like, okay, yeah, it's just a scene. You're fine now. It's time for another scene. And I'm like, do they feel like I feel? Because it was exciting. It was
Yeah.
interesting. And so it was through this kind of acting that started to kind of lead me to a more transformation focused mindset,
Love it.
including and especially, there was an acting teacher's name is Eric Morris, and he's known to have a very unique approach to the performing arts in terms of scene study, challenging your, social obligations in order to really get in character, this type of thing, which was super interesting. It was a very creative atmosphere, which I tend to really lean towards.
Me too. Yes.
And Eric Morris introduced me to something called voice dialogue.
And what is that? What is voice dialogue?
Wow. Voice dialogue is, I'm just going to give folks the layman's terms since I'm not the PhD couple that created it in the 70s. So voice dialogue is kind of founded on the basis that to every healthy personality, that let me phrase this correctly. Voice dialogue is based on a healthy personality consists of many sub personalities. So in acting, this would look like, hey, this is my normal self. I'm pretty normal and I'm not feeling any bold way and I don't have any major perspective pulling me in any direction. But then there is this side of me that can get dangerous. And
Yes.
so through this work, through voice dialogue, whether you're using it for acting or personal development, you can actually do these sort of series of exercises to interview that part of yourself.
Hmm.
So it becomes kind of really interesting when you start to unpack what these doctors Hal and Sidra Stone really created this to be, which is accessible mental health. So the idea
Wonderful.
isn't just, oh, it's all the parts of my personalities I identify with. It's not just that. It's also that shadow work, which I'm
Right.
going to use with intentionality, which is getting to know the parts of you you wish you didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
The
Wish you
parts
could
that are,
hide. Nobody
yes,
knew about, right?
the parts that are not accepted, the
Yes.
parts that got you spankings,
Yeah.
the parts that got you fired or
Mm-hmm.
disliked, the parts that embarrassed you.
Yes.
Because through this ability that we all have to either do the work individually or get with a partner, we're able to come back to the center after this unique exercise. And I mean, I'm not really great on miracle stories with, oh, you're going to love it and it's amazing. It's impactful and very revealing. So I love it as a creative and personal development exercise. And I've loved it for over 20 years now.
Wow, wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. I had never heard of voice dialogue before. And I love having this conversation with you because we have so much in common. So, my background was also in the performing arts. I am also African American, and I grew up in a town that was mostly Caucasian. And so, at the time when I was a child, I was the only Black family, or one of two Black families, sorry, in the whole town. And so it was very difficult. I felt so much pressure from my parents to be a good girl and to represent my race and all of this stuff that's a little bit too much for a little child. And so I was very quiet. I barely spoke. I was so afraid of how I was seen to the outside world. But then I got into acting. And once I got into acting, I was a new character on stage. I wasn't Khristee, I was somebody else. And so I played all these character roles, and it was really freeing for me. It was so healing for me to play someone else and not worry about how people were viewing me. I just was that character. I embodied that character. So the arts can be very healing for us to express ourselves. So I love that we have that in common. So thank you again for sharing about voice dialogue. I think that's an important empowerment tool for other people to know. You do not have to be an actor to use it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, beautiful. And so you were in the field for a while, and then what happened? I believe that you worked really hard and it led to burnout. Is that correct?
Yes. It's we talk about resilience, and it is great to be able to use band-aids, coping mechanisms, and just sheer tenacity to kind of start from where you are and to try to, live your dreams or find your dreams or dream bigger dreams. But ultimately, and which is pretty typical for the industry, I did find myself feeling super burned out, not just from, you know, the chapter one early start, but the chapter two identity layers of, I mean, there's lots of unhealthy folks that are also in the fashion, film, television, and entertainment industry. So a couple of stalker types,
Mm,
the types of men attracted to the model world, and they can
right.
get really very strategic about turning young women against each other because they want to feel loved, liked, or that's their coping mechanism. So I I was exhausted, and I started studying non-plant medicine shamanism.
We have that in common too.
Love,
Wonderful.
love the non-plant medicine shamanism. And I read that in your bio, and I thought,
Yes.
ooh, I can't wait to have summer camp with, like, ooh, so I'm trying
Yes,
not to
we have a
plan
lot in
ahead.
common. So did you have the experience of having a shamanic session, or did you actually study it for a while? How did you dip your toes in?
So I first dipped my toes in with Reiki,
Okay.
and I'm still in touch with this amazing woman. Her name is Alexandra Palace.
Okay.
And from there in Reiki, and just to paint the picture for folks, we were in Southern California. I want to say this is probably, I don't know, 15 years plus ago. And she said, "Oh, everyone, can you please tell us what came to your mind's eye, or what came through this kind of meditation type of exercise?" And folks were talking about like rainbows and angels and all the pretty things. And I thought, oh no, like, I'm sure you do not want to know what was in my mind's eye. So, what was in my mind's eye was a black cobra.
Mm.
And she was so grounded and fearless, which was pretty surprising. And she said, I have a recommendation for you that I think you're going to really gel with. And I ended up studying with the Four Winds Society,
Oh, wonderful.
founded by Alberto Violdo, PhD, a man from
Yes.
Cuba, who has studied lots of different modalities of shamanism, and has created a program so that we can more deeply experience a lot of the traditions. And hopefully, I want to say this with, we want to experience those traditions while also supporting and emphasizing the root medicine of where this comes from. So I
Yes.
want to be sure I'm respectful about how I phrase that.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, shamanism is so healing, and so many people still are not understanding what it is. And for me, it transformed me so much too, because at that time I had moved from New York City. So I was a actress in New York City and I absolutely loved it. I knew I always wanted to be an actress from 5 years old. I imagined myself up on the big stage. I wanted to be a stage actress, not a TV actress, although later I wanted to do sitcoms and be like Lucille Ball. But yeah, it transformed me to go from being in New York City, and I got really, really sick. I developed a chronic illness. So that was the very beginning, but I was still so passionate about my career, still trying to get out there. But then I kind of burnt out too, because I was trying so hard to fight and to do this amazing career that I wanted so bad, but I had this chronic illness and I couldn't do both of them. So I ended up having to move back to Connecticut. And that's when I discovered shamanism. And shamanism really helped me to heal during that time. So it is very healing, and it's also a lifestyle too. So I think it's important for people to know about shamanism as a way to heal. And also, I believe you tried something else as well besides shamanism for your well-being. What was that?
So this was super fantastic. The shamanism helped me to kind of find that sense of wholeness. And eventually, as time went on and I continued to explore creativity or different ways that I would pivot my career, trauma informed outreach was
Mm,
a free, excuse me, not free, a small program through an organization called the Connection Coalition. That is an organization that takes yoga to things like charter schools, um, detention centers, and different places that yoga and breath work can enhance the community experience to reconnect folks that may or may not have access.
beautiful.
And
Can you say what trauma informed means for those who are not familiar?
yes, great question. So in this particular program, trauma informed outreach was uh, was defining our ability to not go into new environments with default thinking that was rooted in bias, supremacy culture mindset. So the way that trauma informed was utilized, and I'll use the phrase trauma informed outreach specifically. This was so much about recognizing the role racism and the isms play when we are in settings we're not normally in.
Mm,
Meaning, we're in a place of acknowledgement that we are sharing and in a space of mutuality, but we're not fixing, we're not saviors. And so this really kind of helped me to step back and look at my own story. The program they put together was fantastic, and it focused so much more on historic trauma
hmm,
than I ever imagined. I thought I was going into kind of a yoga-ish program.
right.
And so it really did open my eyes to, it gave me permission to look at things that I wasn't able to look at previously. I wasn't in environments encouraging me to use my voice, to share my experience. Most of
Mhm.
my environments wanted me to be something different or something more acceptable.
Interesting. Very interesting. Wonderful. I'm so glad that you discovered that program. And then where did that lead you from there? Is that when you became the director of Pace's Connection, or was there an in-between stage?
There's a little bit of this in between stage. So I was already, had founded Kissing Lions Public Relations
Okay.
and
Congratulations.
was working with branding and, creative strategies to support folks that society might otherwise toss aside. And
Mm,
I really felt compelled to fight for them. Like there's just something in my chops. And I'm like, no, your brand is amazing. No, we're going to make it stick.
yes.
So folks that come to me, they know that's what they're signing on for. But my sister passed away.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
My sister passed away. I don't count because I'm still disassociating sometimes. I
Okay.
want to say it's been about 7 or 8 years now.
Okay.
And her name was Kimberly Renee Neal.
Beautiful
And
name.
Kimberly and I never got a chance to be we never got a chance at real sisterhood.
Oh,
We didn't get that opportunity. We grew up together, but those adverse childhood experiences I mentioned at the top of this discussion, I mean, they unraveled our entire universe.
yeah.
And she was the sister who's 3.5 years older and much richer in hue.
Okay.
So, aside from the regular colorism, that is embedded in white supremacy culture in various environments, whatever our background may be, the person that we were, I'll say the feral policing we experienced, the life-changing violence we experienced through the law enforcement official, it changed her forever.
Yeah.
She was never, she was never the same. And we toyed at it with mixed results. It just, we died, right? We had a spiritual death.
Right. It
And
sounds like she didn't get the healing that she needed after that experience. It sounds like you went through a healing journey, transformation through the arts, through shamanism, through Reiki, but perhaps she didn't. Is that correct? Would you say that's correct?
so I want to be respectful not to speak
Oh,
to how she coped,
yeah.
but
Okay.
I will say that I do hear that older siblings exposed to extreme violence, the younger sibling then does take less of an impact. And I feel like that was very much a part of a lot of identity crisis she potentially experienced. But I'm bringing this into the conversation because the shift continues to happen, right? Hashtag shift happens. When
Mm.
she passed away, our relationship started.
Started. Interesting.
Yes.
And how is that?
Our relationship. So at first, the shock of it all and the way that different family members sort of have their own responses and their own traumas that get surfaced. But after a few years, and I was sort of finding my way through continued wellness, I'd already had the stuff in the back pocket with the transformational mindset. So this is now happening, and I'm getting a chance to kind of reimagine how all of this is interconnected. And as that began to happen, this was very strong in my own personal meditations. And I want to say to your audience, it's different for everyone. So that doesn't mean that if you've lost someone, you're going to be dreaming about them, seeing them in your waking state.
Yes.
I'm simply expressing the ways that my system informs me when I'm on this sort of transformational journey. And I want to be transparent. We're not besties per se. It's not a rosy story. The story that everyone hopes that I'm going to one day say, "Oh, it's rosy. Let me tell you about the rosy part." I feel it's more important to share the transformational piece, that my belief is that whether we are in human form or beyond, we continue our transformational journey. And
Beautiful.
so I can see there's been certain times, by the way, in true Kimberly style, Kimberly has a back-to-back death day and birthday during Black History Month,
Oh, wow.
no less. So it really is, she continues to this experience continues to educate me. It continues to help me to transform and to challenge any of that supremacy culture that created such an ugly friction that we couldn't even enjoy a truly and deeply connected sisterhood while
Hmm.
she was still here.
Hmm.
Um, and so I do have big heart-centered feelings about that. I am learning all the time. So being an evergreen, just being an evergreen learner, an evergreen student of life has been powerful. And we don't have to subscribe to the squishy stories of transformation. For those of you who are watching that are a little bit more intellectual,
Mm-hmm.
the idea is to really center on the universal message. And I started to understand she did something very special for us. So by the time I was accepting the role, which I recently did, of the director of creating resilient communities at
Congratulations.
Paces Connection, I was so much more clear on my why. Why am I accepting this role? Why am I convinced of the power of true sisterhood while we're here in the flesh?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I determined to challenge colorism? And I don't mean to harm others because they maybe have made mistakes or maybe they have been up to mischief, but the challenge is really on the side of mayhem, which is the intentional corrosive behaviors that have created such identity crisis that we can't even see one another in front of each other.
Yeah.
Moments we need each other the most. So um it's just been life-changing.
Amazing, amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing about your sister. I didn't know about that. And yes, it's so important for us to heal our trauma and to spend good quality time with each other and have that connection, but it's not always easy. So, how do you do this through the work that you do as director of creating resilient communities? How do you help to bridge the sisterhood, the connection?
Well, this is a great question. So I want to preface that by saying I continue my transformational journey,
Yes.
and it may inform so many areas of my life. So through this, we call it the CRC program. So the CRC, Creating Resilient Communities, is a 16-hour accelerator certification program that educates on trauma-informed awareness and resilience building frameworks through the evidence of positive and adverse childhood experiences. So that
Mm,
was a mouthful. We can
wonderful. Yes.
unpack that for your
Yes.
audience.
Yes. So you said positive and adverse childhood experiences. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes.
Both.
So
It's interesting. Go ahead.
it is super interesting, and especially directly relates to some of the things that I've shared during our talk today. So positive and adverse childhood experiences, which we refer to at our organization as PACES Science, hence the name PACES Connection. So PACES Science is a few things. It is looking at epigenetics, how our brain and our bodies responded to toxic stress. And
Yes.
as a result, our nervous system is impacted.
Yes.
Also on adverse childhood experiences, which was a survey done years and years ago. I will drop some items for you all in our little goodie package here so that you all can kind of click around and learn more.
Wonderful.
So Pace of Science is taking something that began as looking at adverse childhood experiences exclusively
Mm-hmm.
in the household. And subsequently, what happened is that we had a paradigm shift. We started to understand it's not just the adverse childhood experiences that impacts our health throughout our entire life, especially if we're unaware on how to rebuild, how to, get resilience in there and get healthy interventions so that we can, be at our full potential. But subsequently, these surveys started to look at adverse environmental issues, uh, adverse community environments, for example, atrocious cultural experiences. So there's a
Mm.
little set of ACEs. And the last part of that, so when we talk about PACEs and resilience science, the resilience, there's like a little graphic I can share with you, but resilience is the last part. So
Mm.
we're less looking at what happened to you, which, by the way, is a wonderful book by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. But we're also looking at all of the factors, including issues of systems, social justice, and the isms, including and especially racism.
Mm-hmm.
So This 16-hour accelerator certification program introduces entry-level terms so folks can all be on the same page about what we're talking about. Because the idea here is that when we are talking about things like social justice is helping us understand what we need to do to mobilize and make this a better world. So
Yes.
that informs my why. And that is the nature of positive and adverse childhood experiences. It's not divorcing one for the other. It's not decoupling them because we're telling ourselves we're so optimistic. I'll give you an example as a trigger warning for your audience, but I want to make sure to be very thorough with how I share the things I'm sharing for educational purposes. I was assaulted without being woken up. I was physically assaulted with full brute force. I happened to fall asleep facing down. This is my favorite way to sleep. I'm just a facing down sleeper.
Okay.
So this assault happened on the left side of my body, to the extent where the next day in my private Catholic school, Rainbow Universe, we were going to a beach field trip.
Oh no.
And I was ready to like wear my Mork and Mindy one-piece bathing suit my mom bought me from Kmart
Mark and
because I
Mindy.
had a crush on this cute guy named Julian. And I was like,
Oh.
maybe he's gonna think I'm beautiful. So I'm in little girl world, and this assault happened
Oh my goodness.
without me being woken up, which is it speaks specifically to a lot of dysfunction I would then need to revisit in order to understand and just to forgive the complexity of all of it. So let's look at positive and adverse childhood experiences. Adverse childhood experiences studies seem to indicate things like cancer, neuro issues, neurological issues, nervous system issues, problems regulating our hormones when we are in fight, flight, freeze. So the left side of my body has forevermore been a little bit slower. I've had a lump removed on the left, in my left breast.
Oh, really?
So, and I don't mean to paint this lightly. I'm feeling this profoundly, but it's invigorating to share it with your audience, because when we understand, it's not brain fog. You're short circuiting because this person just took 2 steps towards you and you're terrified they're going to harm you.
Yes.
Right? And so evergreen optimism, we want to be very, very, very mindful to just sprinkle. It's like salt. We just want a little bit of that.
Yeah.
But we want the body of the meal not to be a seasoning. We want it to be a deeply embodied understanding of, oh, I'm not able to regulate my nervous system. When I feel there's someone stepping towards me, raising their voice, and I have
Yeah, you get triggered.
right. So not only are we triggered, but if we start getting, using our exciting tools like transformational experiences in shamanism with or without plant medicine, right? Because I'm not endorsing that it's one or the other, or things like Reiki or voice dialogue or therapeutic acting or
Yes,
writing, which I identify as a writer.
I do too. I'm a writer as well. Yes,
Oh,
we have
yeah.
so much in common.
Oh, yeah. We need like writing summer camp. We need acting. We
Yeah,
just need the creative summer camps happening.
we do. We do.
So the idea here is that when we can recognize we are back to center,
Yes.
we are writing the new ending to our story, as my mentor Alberto Violdo used to tell, hundreds and hundreds of students at a time. And the way that we can rewrite is not to simply rely on imagination. It's to rely on evidence so that we can
Yes.
heal our bodies, our minds, and our spirits.
Yes.
And it gets good there.
Yeah, very
It
good.
gets juicy. It gets wild. It gets provocative. We give ourselves more permission to make new friends and bridge new sisterhood, right? When we're understanding we got in a spat, I don't like you right now because my husband really did some awful things and I just don't want to trust people right now. So rather than me going into rejection and shutting down, I know how to come back to center. So I can
Beautiful.
say, oh, for sisterhood, what do I need to do? I
Beautiful.
need to hear where this person is.
And I think it's so important what you said. I think it's so important for people to know that trauma can cause chronic conditions, can cause chronic illness, can even cause cancer, as you said. So some people may be with their jaws dropping right now, like, really? Oh my goodness, I had no idea that it's all connected, mind, body, and spirit, but it is. So it's very important if you've had trauma, and we've all had different levels of trauma, some more adverse than others, but it's very important that you take some time and heal. And there's so many different modalities. I mean, we spoke about Reiki today, which is energy work. We spoke about shamanism. You can do non-plant-based, you can do plant-based, you can do dancing, you can do writing, you can do the voice dialogue, which again is so great to understand who you are. We need to understand who we are so we can understand where we want to go and how we relate to other people. And also to understand that if you do not heal your trauma, it can pass down through the generations. It's called intergenerational trauma. So what you're doing is also helping to stop the trauma from going down the lineage as well.
Absolutely. Epigenetics is something that we discuss in Introduction to PACES Science, which is one of the modules in our free program.
Wonderful. Yes, everyone. She has a free program certification. Definitely check out the link in the description below and click on that. I'm going to sign up as well. I'm super excited. And let's see, anything else you would like to say about sisterhood and the importance of it and how women can have sisterhood? I think this is a topic that a lot of women wish they had closer friends, closer community. They feel alone and isolated, especially the last few years. How can we start to find that sisterhood and embrace that sisterhood?
Well, I have my hypothesis. So I want to first say I promise to continue challenging my beliefs and my thoughts about sisterhood, right? Because that's a big
Mm,
part of it.
mm,
I believe sisterhood is feeling exposed and vulnerable, but for the best possible reasons. That
mm,
we're in this mutual agreement that we're pouring into each other.
mm.
The sisterhood that I am interested in, which is a more conscious expression of that sisterhood, there's solidarity,
Yes,
right? When someone says, something happened to me, we're not erasing it or trying to make light of it. We're saying, hang on, we're going to go get some coffee Saturday morning. We're going to unpack this. What's happening?
yes,
There's also this powerful, especially for those that are in different, that have different cultural backgrounds. It's important that rather than look at each other, exclusively looking at each other when there's a conflict, look up. And what
mm,
do you see? You're going to see a construct. You're going to see some patriarchy. You're going to see
mm-hmm.
benefactors that are quick to tell you you're being dramatic, you're to blame. Look at how they fight each other. And so when we challenge ourselves, there's a risk involved. Like, well, I love this person. They're so lovable. I want to be sisters with you. From there, we have to be willing to, it's like listen and respond to understand if we have the same shared values. If it's
Yes,
super deep sisterhood, if it's just a big group sisterhood and you all volunteer together and do cool things like that, maybe those things can grow. But we need to know where our heart is so that we can manage our expectations. And there's a level of maturity in sisterhood where we have to say, well, I think sisterhood is, I want to be able to be transparent with you about who I am.
yes.
And they may or may not feel that that's sisterhood. So we have
Mm.
to look for our tribe and
Yes, we
never stop
do.
looking and
So
build it.
so important. Yes, build it. Yes. Yes, I'm looking for more creatives, more warm-hearted people that are into really being proactive about their health and wellness. I think it's so important, again, like you said, to have sisterhood, to have that support. That's part of healing too. We cannot heal in a bubble by ourselves. We need the support from others in order to grow and transform. And I also wanted to ask you, I'm so curious about everything you do. Again, we have so much in common. You also are a storyteller. So, can you tell the audience a little bit about you being a storyteller and perhaps how that has helped you again to heal, or how it's helped your audience to heal by hearing stories?
Oh yes, I love this piece. This piece is also, it's a healing piece, but it's also a cultural piece. When I started to be able to step back and look at who I am and my own heritage, I started to understand we come from storytellers.
Yes.
And in indigenous cultures, we're passing stories down from generation to generation well before written word. And so these are where traditions are introduced. And I started to really understand, um, I like writing. I didn't know how I could do it. And when I attended the Four Winds Society, which was the Healing the Light Body program, they may have rebranded or renamed that by now. Alberto Violdo always emphasized, as you heal, you're writing a new ending to your story.
Yes. You are creating your story. You're creating the ending. Yes.
As you go, right? Which
Yes.
includes healing what did happen. That doesn't mean denial, but it means acknowledging that and the present as we are looking to dreaming more dreams. So the
Beautiful.
writing, it sort of sparked at that time. And I've written for small, medium platforms,
Wonderful.
industry rules. I did a cover story on Roxanne Shante, a famous rap icon. And so that it was a really positive experience to take a lot of what I've been through, a lot of searching for my voice, and
Mm-hmm.
finally find writing, which absolutely is cathartic. A big part of voice dialogue is journaling,
Okay.
although I'm not a great journaler. I think I'm a better storyteller in terms of in shamanism, there's sacred storytelling. So tell a story about this, or things like ekphrastic poetry, which is you're looking at an image and then you're writing about it. Those are things that are deeply healing. So big shout
Wonderful.
out to Erica Sage Kelly. Recently, she's been a guest for the CRC, one of the CRC modules on art as healing a community. So there's so many things, and even just being playful, that doesn't
Yes.
need a fancy term. Being silly, laughing, being ridiculous,
Yes. So important
making
for us to do that.
yes.
Access
So
that inner child, let her play, just be free, don't
yeah.
worry about how you seem. We all need fun, we all need play. That's why I love the arts. And I am like you, I'm a storyteller, I'm a writer. I'm writing a 3-book series on holistic childbirth around the world, so I'm super excited to get that out there. And it's all capturing these stories of women who I interviewed and also childbirth experts, so it's really hearing their story and like putting your feet in their shoes and being on their journey with them. So I'm super excited to share these stories, share these books. And again, you can see the world differently by how you tell the story.
That's right.
Wonderful. So to leave us, would you like to offer any advice for those who are or who have experienced trauma in the past and feel that they haven't healed from it, they haven't processed it, they haven't transformed yet? Any advice for them? And even possibly going more specifically, anyone who's had a similar experience to you about being part of feral policing and how they can transform through that.
Absolutely. So for anyone who has experienced trauma, I encourage you to challenge the societal belief that we should carry the stigma as a result. Get curious about your own heart, your own mind, your own body, your own full potential, and know that anything you do to pour into yourself, to recover, is a part of a larger repair and restoration dynamic. Um, it's can be painful sometimes, so practice self-care and pace
Yes.
yourself, but it's fantastic. And one-on-one therapy is wonderful. Not everyone has access to that, but believe it or not, the science, PACE's science tells us, so long as we have that trusting person, we really have a meaningful, healthy, trusting relationship with, who really gets us, the healing still continues. So please don't think you need $1 million to begin your healing journey.
Yes. Yes.
Um, And for those that are on the receiving end of feral policing, oftentimes, we see that as so many folks, poor people in general who may not have had access. They find themselves in different situations. Black and African American people, specifically here in the United States, we know it's an all hands on deck crisis with feral policing right now.
Yes.
I encourage you to learn about trauma-informed awareness and resilience building. You need the shared language to mobilize, to share with your decision makers, with your Justice Department, with those who are in local politics, who are making the policies that these feral police officers may sometimes feel they're following. Right. So we can see gaps, and you are uniquely qualified to mobilize. Please do it safely. We need you here. We need you whole.
Yes.
And if you are a recovering abuser, please take learning about trauma-informed awareness and resilience building frameworks through PACE's science seriously. Just because folks need an intervention doesn't have to carry more of a stigma. Step into the shift and take responsibility if you've harmed others. I've been harmed. I've never been apologized to. I've never had someone say, wow, I was completely out of my mind. And it's a powerful experience. If you do that, please do it mindfully and consult mental health care folks so that you don't just think that you're going to come out of the blue and be suddenly hugged and forgiven and it's going to be rosy.
Yeah.
Do it with intention, and don't do it to center yourself. Do it for the true healing of the person that you've harmed and the inner person you have neglected to acknowledge who was potentially harmed.
Very well said. Thank you so much for that, Kahshanna. Very well said, and very important for people to hear, because I don't think many people think about the abuser realizing what they did, and to learn about trauma-informed education and to take ownership for what they did. Very, very important that we open up this discussion, and hopefully, people will seek out your organization. This is very important work that you're doing, not only for those who have experienced trauma, but also for abusers. So again, this doesn't continue to be passed down. Very, very important work. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Wow, it's amazing, your transformation. So much you have been through. And yes, you are resilient. And yes, I think this is also, isn't this Domestic Violence Awareness Month right now? Is that correct? October?
Yeah, so it's a Global Mental Health Awareness Day is October the 10th, or international, something. It's slipping my mind.
The World Mental Health Day is
thank you.
Next week on the 10th.
That's right.
But isn't there also Domestic Violence Awareness? Isn't it also Domestic Violence Awareness Month?
That's right. It is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Sorry, that's a tongue twister.
It is a mouthful. It's a mouthful. Yes. So it's perfect that we're talking about this month. And again, I think it's very inspirational for everyone listening to hear about your journey, how you went through so much trauma from your childhood, from abuser at home to cyber stalker to bullying, and then, going through burnout and really finding yourself and finding your voice, and then helping others so they can transform too and have a beautiful sisterhood. So thank you so much for the work that you do. How can people learn more? How can they reach out to you? How can they learn about this certification program?
So Holistic Me TV, get ready. You are up for a treat. Khristee Rich will be bringing such powerful discussions and conversations on health, well-being, our mental health, our holistic health, and finding that interplay. So thank you, Khristee. You can visit pacesconnect.com. That's PACESCONNECTION.com to learn more. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So if your organization wants to connect, please feel free to link with me and join free programs. I have actually access to a few free events, so I will make sure to share those with Khristee.
Wonderful.
Just stay inspired. Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kahshanna. Great to have you on today. And as a reminder, this is a series. So please go ahead and first of all, like this video if you enjoyed today's conversation. Leave us a comment and let us know what you learned today. I'm sure you learned something today, even the term that you use, life-changing violence. I don't think a lot of people use that term, life-changing violence, but that may change how you view violence. So thank you for that terminology. Leave us a question. If you have a question, we will come and circle back. And don't forget to subscribe. Click that subscribe button so that you can watch the full season of all these amazing guests from around the world to empower you with your health and wellness. So thank you again, Kahshanna. Have a beautiful day, everyone. And please continue to watch the rest of Holistic Me TV and share this episode so more people can benefit. Thanks for watching.